Most of the NFL players involved in a class action concussion lawsuit against the league reluctantly accepting the deal. Tuesday, marking the deadline for players to decide whether they would accept the agreement, opt out, or reject it. The vast majority of retired players are accepting the deal because they would face too many uncertainties going forward if they don't sign off on the agreement. Attorneys for the former players say they would have to wait years to collect anything if they decide to opt out or reject the deal. The $765 million settlement will be awarded to 18,000 players and their families, some players rejecting the agreement, saying the money is not enough to cover all of their expenses. And Doug, you know, I saw reaction to it, and it varied from some in your guys' world saying this is some of the greatest lawyering they ever saw on the part of the NFL counsel in this. People can start doing their math, but between 18,000 players and $765 million and the medical costs that these guys are assuming, let alone obviously all the permanent damage that they suffered playing the game. And I know it varies. You have a big pool when you're talking 18,000. Somebody compared it to something you know very well. They said this is kind of like what the deal they agreed to, some of the biggest asbestos cases that were settled in the beginning, where there were payments, but there was no formal acknowledgement that there was a cause and effect of asbestos and mesothelioma. I'm impressed I said that the right way. So explain for the audience what it means that in the agreement there's a payment, but there's not a formal acknowledgement of cause and effect of football, concussions, and CTE damage.
So what they're talking about is going forward, if the NFL had to acknowledge the fact that they were culpable and liable, the next people that come up to sue the NFL wouldn't have to deal with that because that's already been resolved, and now it would be just a question of damages. So apparently in this settlement, they're not acknowledging that they're culpable and there is no liability, so that the next wave of players would have to prove the case up. They'd have to present the science, and they'd have to convince a jury, if it got that far, that there is a connection. So, but you got to think about it, these lawyers that represent these players, they're representing their clients. They don't have a duty to unnamed players that may come up later on. And these lawsuits are settled by money. That's the only thing they can ask for, really, money. I guess in this case they can ask for procedures to be changed, but they can ask for money. So their duties to their clients, I assume their clients know the money that they're settling for. They've approved it. I'm sure a judge has signed off on it. So, and oftentimes people are unhappy when settlements occur on both sides. And that's kind of par for the course a lot of the times.
And you know, talk about between a rock and a hard place. Some of these families, they can't make these medical bills. There's only one income if the wife's still working, and he's got a limited time left, you know? So you got to take the money, I guess. But it's really a shame from where this thing started to where it is right now. The choices are between bad and worse.
Well, that's right. You have some of these people have no choice. The money truly isn't enough. It's not a matter of being greedy. It's not a matter of their own calculation of their harm. It's really a matter of what is it going to take for me to survive? And for those who have many years ahead of them and many years of medical expenses, it's not enough. And it's a quandary. It really is.
I saw one case, Mayo, player with ALS, Steve Gleason, if those remember, from the Saints, and a teammate of his. In fact, somebody who helped him through this. They were on opposite sides of whether or not to take the settlement or not, and their positions were actually working contrary to each other, to each other's interests. But one of them was looking at to say, I got 20, 30, 40 more years left on this planet. This isn't going to help me when it gets really bad for me. It's bad now, but it's going to get worse. And Gleason, who's suffering, as people know, from ALS, his family's looking at him and say, I can count on one hand the years he's got left here. We need the money now. That's part of the problem with these class action suits, isn't it?
Well, you can opt out, and if you opt out and you go forward, you know, you may do better. And a matter of fact, there's a school of thought that says if more people opt out, no, the NFL didn't acknowledge wrongdoing, but I don't think it's going to be a huge leap to establish that. And if you had 18,000 individual suits, that's expensive, and also each time you have one of these cases, it's detrimental to the brand of the NFL. So while it's going to hurt them to say, yes, our sport's inherently dangerous, almost like the Corvair, unsafe at any speed. You have instead multiple cases being brought up where kids and parents start to watch people who are permanently injured. Maybe their kids
By the
don't
way,
get into
extra
football.
bonus points for Mayo for using Corvair appropriately.
But here's the thing, in that case, when they have such disparate kind of injuries, I don't know how you get past the class certification stage to begin with. And we talked about it on this show last year. The Supreme Court has tightened up the class certification requirements.
And we didn't even get in there that there was, a judge has already said, go back to the drawing table, this isn't enough money, and still they're going to take the deal because of all the things we talked about. All right, we're going to ask our barrister on the end about the high court here, where on the docket, the Supreme Court justices are preparing to weigh in on what constitutes a credible threat. Threats of violence made online treated differently when compared to threats made in person. The question is, should they be? We'll be right back.